Hello and welcome to another episode of Ask an Assistant, the podcast for executive assistants and the people that love us. I'm your host, Jess Lindgren, reporting to you as live as possible from the podcast closet. Let's get to work. So last week we recorded from the comforts of my bed on a wireless lav, had to shoo the cat away. We are back in the studio. Yes, that's right. We are back in the freezing cold podcast closet, as it were. So welcome. This week we do not have a question. It is roughly quarterly time. I feel like I should get a little jingle made for that. Maybe one of these days. Maybe that's one of my projects for 2025. We'll see what happens. But this quarter, it's quarter 3. We are winding down the end of 2024. To start the new year off right, we are refreshing or establishing, as appropriate, our email signatures. So far this year, we have tackled, just to refresh our memories, the roughly quarterly series is something that just once a quarter, we pick a big project or a little project. Like this one, honestly, I feel is a bigger project than you might think or than you might guess. But so far this year, we've tackled in Q1 2024, we did a template refresh. Links to all of these episodes will be in the show notes. So if there are any templates that you use on any given frequency, great project for once a quarter or once a year if you're just going to tackle 4 big projects a year. But yeah, so we did a template refresh for Ask an Assistant episode 8. Episode 20 in Q2, we did seek and destroy large files. So just anything that's hanging out, whether it's in your email, sending back and forth those huge PowerPoint files, if you're downloading entire photo libraries or whatever, like get those files out of there. Get your systems functioning at their very best by freeing up some memory. Episode 30, we did a subscription audit. This is great for anything that maybe is attached to an old credit card, someone who's no longer with the company. If you're paying for something that you signed up for 6 months ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, and just aren't using, it's really great to sit down once in a while and just go through and say, okay, even if this is only like $5 a month, at the end of the year, that's still $60. Like that's still something. I like to call it steak money. At the end of the year, that's $60, that's $600, that's $6,000. That is steak money. Take that money, turn it into something else. Turn it into fancy pens, turn it into a new microphone if you're a podcaster, turn it into a steak if you are someone like me who appreciates a fancy steak once a quarter. But anyway, back to what we are now at, episode 43. Here we are. We're going to do our email signature refresh or establishment. So I touched on this a moment ago. Depending on the size of your company, this can be a bigger project than you might think. Presently, I have a company of 1, Gal Friday 612, that brings us the Ask an Assistant podcast to your ears. My full-time role is at a company of 2. This is not a large, complex project for me this year. In the past, though, I have done this for companies the size of 5 people, 20 people, 50 people. I did it for a company that I worked at where we started at about 350 people and we're at 600 and counting by the time I left. So it can be a very big, unwieldy project. It can be quick and easy. Just kind of depends on how many cooks you have in the kitchen, nailing down what the required and or optional information might be. Diving into it, you can tackle this project one of 2 ways. I am old enough that I have had to do this manually, person by person, whether you have one person on the team. I have been the person on the team creating the individualized signatures for everyone at the company. You send it person by person and say, hey, person A, here's your email signature, copy paste this, and here's how you make the update. I just recently found out, thinking about this episode, actually, I was like, gosh, I wonder if there's a way to just update everyone's information across the entire company. And guess what? There is. Option 2 for satisfying this project. If you have someone design the signatures, you can create and distribute as a template whether you do it as like a company-wide, hey, everybody, copy paste, here is the format, here's the instructions for how to do it, and then you can make that yourself. Or this is the one that I just learned about, that if you are an admin for Google Workspace, Google Apps for Business, whatever they're calling themselves these days, and Microsoft Outlook. If you are the person who has admin access, or if you at least have access to the person who has admin access, set that company standard and save everybody a ton of work. Like sending it out as an email, it's just another little bit of noise for everybody. Set a little meeting if you have to, where you're just like, hey, everybody, all hands meeting, inter-office meeting. Again, this is all going to depend on the size and scope of your organization, maybe even your department, but just get everybody on board, because this is a small but important task. So yeah, getting that admin access, or at least access to the person who has admin access, setting the template, then you're not sitting and creating even 5 individual templates for people to copy and paste and make the updates themselves. Then you can just push the update, everybody fills in their blanks, and it goes from there. I have not touched Microsoft Outlook in over a decade, so I kind of wonder if this functions almost like a mail merge, where you can like say, push it to, it's going to come up with Jess Lindgren, email, company name, whatever it is, whatever the fields are that you want it to be. I kind of wonder if it works that way. So I am actually really interested to do a little more digging to find out more about it, even though, again, I don't use Microsoft Outlook, but I'm just fascinated as someone who is coming from having used Microsoft Outlook for many years. I kind of hope it functions that way, but we'll find out. It is really important to set a deadline to make this happen. Like whether it's a project that you let someone individually tackle, or you leave it to the people in your organization to update a template, getting a deadline creates a little bit of urgency. Like the company that my husband works at has been acquired a handful of times. So they might do a company signature refresh once or twice a year, just based on if there are any logo or branding changes. But then also every time the company is acquired, you have to go through and you have to go through and make those changes. You just do, because you're no longer company ABC, now you're company XYZ. So just any time that it makes sense. But like I said, winding down the year right now is a really great time to do it. Start everybody off in 2025 feeling fresh and, clean across the board. I just think it looks really nice when you have a company standard for your email signature. This is something that you're going to need to do is sit down and decide what the mandatory information is. This will definitely vary based on your company, possibly your department, and potentially even as granularly as what your role is. A few examples that come to mind: if your company is fully remote, you might not have a physical address that clients can visit. But a mailing address might be important if you work in the accounting department. If your company doesn't have desk phones, a phone number isn't going to be mandatory, but maybe your sales team want to make it easy for people to get a hold of them. And so adding a phone number makes sense for that department. Something that's an example that I've definitely encountered is working directly with CEOs of companies. The CEO might choose to have their executive assistants' phone number, email address, instructions for how to get a better response. The CEO might respond to your email directly, but by having the executive assistant's information in their email signature, like that can really help people understand the structure of the executive department and how to get better responses at any time. So definitely sit down with any stakeholders, whether that is the CEO, a department head, HR, your legal team, and build email signatures from there. If you do decide that you want a picture in your email signatures, decide if you're going to go individual headshots, if you're going to do an individual or generic illustration, or maybe even a company logo. If you do go with photos, consider having a day or two like think picture day and retake day. But have a day or two where you have a professional photographer come in. If you're feeling fancy, maybe even hire a makeup artist, like somebody who can just kind of like blot down anybody who's looking a little shiny, give people a quick, like me personally, I own makeup but don't really know how to use it. But the handful of times in my life where I have worn makeup around my present executive, he just looked at me. I remember the last time we did headshots and he looked at me and he was just like, whoa, you look so different. Like even just a little bit of eyeliner, men or women or anybody in between, a little eyeliner, a little mascara, a little blush, whatever it is, like a makeup artist can really make those photos sing. Having that professional photographer in-house is really helpful for getting a good quality photo that has a standardized backdrop, a standardized composition. Like they will have their mark on the floor for where they need to stand. They might have you stand on your mark in front of a backdrop, in front of lighting. They might have you sit on a stool if you're 6.5 feet tall and somebody else in the department is only 5.5 feet tall. Like all of that stuff comes into consideration, and having a professional on hand will just elevate the result to just exponentially. Like it'll just look incredible. And these pictures can also be used for employee LinkedIn profiles, the company website. This is a really nice perk to offer employees and a very worthwhile investment. This is something that I've actually seen offered at like conferences, something that either it's included in your ticket if you buy a fancy enough ticket, or something that you can book as an optional add on to your ticket and booking a time with the photographer that they have. If your company happens to have a significant, I mean, even one person is significant. If you have one remote employee, set a company standard and distribute guidelines. I've done this before where photos needed to be taken against a brick wall, in front of a tree, against a white backdrop. Maybe you want people wearing company colors. Maybe you want everybody wearing a black shirt against a white backdrop. Whatever it is that's going to make your graphic design and or photography professional's job the easiest. You might even consult with that photography professional and or graphic design professional to set those standards. You're also going to need to distribute guidelines to employees. Are you going to accept a selfie from people? Like you can only get so far away, depending on the person's photography abilities. Are they going to take a picture with the sun facing them and then you get a camera shadow over your face and you're squinting because you're staring into the sun? So you just really want to work with somebody who knows what they're doing in this area to help you set some guidelines. I definitely like to recommend that people take both a vertical and horizontal shot. Again, whatever the company background you choose is, and give a fair amount of headspace. That way the graphic design and or photography professional that you're working with can do their best to get everybody a standardized shot with a little more headroom around it. Like, again, if you're doing a selfie, like you don't have a lot of play around your face necessarily. But also, again, like talk to those photography and graphic design people, because I'm amateur. I love photography. I feel like I take a pretty decently composed photo, but speaking with somebody who has a better eye for it, the training for it, again, it's just going to elevate the results. For anyone who is remote, or anyone who participates in your in-house picture day, definitely keep track of who has submitted a picture and who you're missing. Doubly keep track of who has made their signature updates and who hasn't. This is something that you might be able to gamify, offer a little treat, maybe someone's favorite candy, do like a donation to a charity, a gift card for the coffee shop around the corner, whatever it is that your budget allows, because hiring a photographer and or makeup artist and or graphic design person, all of that costs money. So depending on your budget, making it something where folks get a little return on taking care of this seemingly small but very important task can also be a worthwhile investment. If you do go with an illustration, our accountant has these, and I think they are so cute. Every time we get a little email from them, you could ask everybody to submit a selfie, hire an illustrator to make a little drawing of everybody. Plenty of people I feel are way too fast. Excuse me. Way too fast to jump to saying, just make it with AI. There's a lot that we don't know about the environmental impacts of AI just yet. I have been reading and learning a little bit more that even just for a simple email or idea generation session, it takes a lot of water to cool the computers that are doing all of this AI work. So personally, I still really enjoy paying people a living wage for their talents. So I am going to strongly suggest that you go with the human over the AI at this juncture. Also, if you're going with a logo, like a company logo, you might already have this. Or if you don't, it is a great time to make one. Again, I'm going to suggest that you go with a professional person and or company to help you make or update a logo for your business. Depending on your company setup, mandatory information might include your name, your title, your department, your company name, your email address, phone number, physical address. Again, a lot of that's going to depend on your company setup and what department you're in. Optional information may include anything like pronouns, a photo, illustration, and or logo, a quote or statement of some kind. Some people, like my sister, works in academia. You might link to a list of your recent publications or any certifications or education details. Pertinent links are definitely a thing. You might link to the company website. You might link to a personal, professional, and or company social media profile as appropriate. Again, that is really going to depend on your department, your company, and potentially your role. For example, at my full-time job, we link to our email newsletter in my executive's outgoing mail, and we have definitely used that space from time to time. When there's something specific going on in the business, we might link to something that's happening that's current, and then you set a date to change that link back. For me personally, I have a link to my podcast, a link to book a one-on-one coaching call, and I also have my mailing address because I love getting things in the mail. At the end of the day, whatever information it is that you decide makes the cut for the company signature template, keep it short, sweet, and consistent. Keep the formatting in check. That was definitely something. I just recently refreshed my own one-person business with the podcast link, the one-on-one booking link, and getting the formatting under control was a challenge. I didn't spend too much time on it, but like definitely making sure that it wasn't an eyesore where like one line is super long and the rest of it is super short. Just keep it across the board, short, sweet, and consistent. Depending, again, I cannot stress this enough, depending on the size, scope, whatever of your organization, you may want to clear email signatures with your legal department, especially if you are allowing employees to include optional and or custom information in their email signatures. I touched on this earlier. This is not going to be a huge project for me in 2024. It has been a huge project in the past and definitely was a bigger project before admin level setting templates existed, or at least maybe they did exist 10, 12 years ago, and I just didn't know it and just did the job in a way that made it harder for myself and everyone involved. We're 6 weeks out from the end of the year. Depending on the size of your company, like you might be implementing this across dozens, maybe hundreds, maybe thousands of people. Be patient but firm with the deadline and make it happen. I think it's an achievable goal. Gamify it a little bit. Give everybody something to say thank you. Get buy-in from above. Like that's a big theme. I definitely see a lot of people talking about, well, how do I get everybody to do XYZ thing? You have to get the executive suite to buy in. You have to get directors to buy in, managers, and then it just all flows down. Get all of your cooks into the kitchen, nail down that list of mandatory information, include suggestions or guidelines for any optional information. Take advantage of the ability to set that template at the company admin level. Check everybody off your list once they've successfully made the update and let me know how it goes. Until next time, I always love to hear from you. askanassistant.com. I am cutting this short because I am recovering from a sinus infection. Last week I said it was a cold. It definitely is a sinus infection, and my voice is fading fast. So until next week, stay hydrated, stay healthy, take care.